Thank you for joining us today. We will be recording today's meeting in case you can't stay for the whole thing or you want to share it with some of your colleagues. I'm Mitch Hendrick. I'm the Planning Grants Unit Manager here with DOLA, and today is our eighth monthly engagement meeting for the implementation of the 2024 land use and housing laws. And I'll get us started with some reminders and a brief overview of what was discussed last month. So quickly, today's presenters will be Eugene Howard, Hannah Van Nimwegen, Mark Williams, Nathan Lindquist, and myself. Links will be posted in the chat throughout this meeting. So if you're looking to access some of these links, you'll see them during the meeting as well as in a follow-up email. So the general meeting format, if you've been in any of our previous webinars, typically covers the topics you see here, including just overall general updates on status and hiring, transit-oriented communities, parking, accessory dwelling units, housing planning and displacement, as well as neighborhood centers and strategic growth planning. So last month's agenda, on February 28th, we discussed the updated, new and improved Engage DOLA website, an update to TOC guidance and technical tools, updates of what was to come in the parking and ADU space in regards to form and manner documentation, the announcement of DOLA's newest housing planning grant program, which is now open for accepting applications through April 11th, updates for housing planning related to displacement mitigation guidance, and lastly, we also discussed neighborhood centers and strategic growth updates. This month, Eugene is going to discuss transit-oriented updates, specifically to some new tools and testing opportunities for you all to get involved with. So we'll be sharing some links when that portion of the presentation comes. And then we'll discuss updates related to parking and accessory dwelling units. Mark and I will discuss housing planning, displacement risk, and the new grant program. And Nathan will cover neighborhood centers and strategic growth planning. And as a reminder, the Community Development Office is actively working on the implementation of the laws you see here: residential occupancy limits, minimum parking requirements, accessory dwelling units, transit-oriented communities, and affordable housing planning. And these efforts are being done in partnership across multiple state agencies. Another reminder pertains to our engagement framework, and this is just one part of our typical engagement that we're doing with these new land use and housing laws. We also have one-on-one meetings, specific technical assistance, other presentations, and web engagement. We will be referencing the website Engage DOLA quite a lot, and this is where we post our draft tools, we receive comments, and then we post our final tools along with other relevant info, including our past webinars, guidance materials, and some testing opportunities, which Eugene will touch on here soon. We are also currently developing multi-law applicability resources to help you all and other local governments more easily determine which laws apply to them. Okay, and before I pass it off to Eugene to discuss transit-oriented communities, I want to quickly highlight some participation guidelines, and really just to emphasize that your questions throughout this webinar and after, when reaching out directly to us, are critical to successful implementation. So continue to ask those questions, get involved, and let us know how we can help you. So if you're not able to stay for the whole thing or you want to share this, we will be posting this to our website along with the slides to Engage DOLA. So with that, I'll pass it off to Eugene.
All right, thank you, Mitch, and good morning, everyone. We really appreciate you taking time to join us today. So I'm going to kick us off with a few updates related to our transit-oriented communities law, HB 24-1313. So our team has been really busy, really actively putting together tools and resources. And so this is just a snapshot of things that have been worked on in 2025 and gives you a little bit of a hint of where we're headed for the rest of the year. So our Housing Opportunity Goal Tool and Transit Center model has been worked on and published. We published that right after our last webinar last month in February. In addition to those tools, we also provided our final guidance for the transit-oriented community in the manual for that. So that is also available in the transit-oriented Communities section of our Engage DOLA website. What we're working on right now is the reporting portal, and I'll speak to that here in just a second. But we are developing a web-based portal really meant as a way for you all to, once your work is completed and you're ready for us to review, it will be a way to submit your work and it'll come to us. We'll get notified. It's a way of capturing and sort of cataloging that this information has been provided to us. But more to come on that in just a second. And really, our efforts are leading us up to our first key milestone, the June 30th deadline, where preliminary information is being sought from all of the transit-oriented communities. So do reach out to us if you have questions along the way. When you are reviewing the guidance and the tools, if things come to mind, or if you would like additional assistance with that, please definitely reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We are actually engaging in some early work with some communities. And so we really just want to make sure that you all know that we are here and available to provide guidance, resources, and support. And speaking of the portal, we are, as I mentioned just a moment ago, actively developing the portal right now. It's in its early stages. And so we felt that before we get too far along, we would love to ask those of you who would like to volunteer and be a part of the development of the reporting portal to reach out to us. We have a couple of opportunities as early as next week for anyone who might be available to help guide and shape and craft the reporting portal. We are doing this and asking for volunteers because we really want to make sure that it works for all of our local government partners. And so to that end, we've got 2 sessions set up for next week, and there will be more as we continue to advance the development of the portal. But next Wednesday, April 2nd, at the beginning of the lunch hour is a 30-minute time slot for anyone who would like to understand or help us craft and shape the portal. And we have another session next Friday from 10 to 10:30. So we want to make sure we give a couple of options, and we'll look to do that as we continue to work with you all in developing this tool. And so if you would like an invite, I just encourage you to reach out to me. My email is on the screen, eugene.howard@state.co.us. And I'll be happy to make sure that you get a calendar invite to those 2 sessions. As I mentioned a moment ago, we have completed our law guidance document. You can find that on our TOC webpage. There will be links put in the chat as well as in this PowerPoint presentation so that if you do reference this at a later date, you'll have access to where those resources can be found. Our final version really looked to build upon sections 1 and 2 that many of you helped review towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year. We've added section 3 to that, the interpretive guidance, and so encourage those of you to take a look at that. And again, reach out if you have questions or comments for us. We've got new and updated appendices and tools related to the Housing Opportunity Goal Calculation tool, which you can find in Appendix A, as well as some Transit Center Calculation Model user guidance that you can find in Appendix B. We are continuing to provide technical assistance, and we're developing the funding mechanisms to help support this work. We've got some best practices, white paper references, and some anti-displacement and affordability mitigate strategies listed in Appendix F. So really encourage you to take a look and reach out to us for questions and any additional guidance. We do have draft versions of our reporting templates in the form and manner document. So those are available as well. And these drafts are really intended to get feedback on the information that jurisdictions would be asked to fill out and provide back to us through the reporting portal. So we welcome your thoughts and really encourage everyone to share any observations or comments with us, ideally in the next week or so, but of course you can always share information with us throughout this process. And we will always be looking for ways to enhance, clarify, and just help you all with this work. So we do have a calculation tool posted on our web pages, along with a video that sort of walks you through the steps and the ways of completing and using the tool. So encourage you, if you were not a part of any previous reviews, to take a look at that webinar that is available on our website. The slides that accompany that are also available. And we're really looking for these to be resources that you can go back to and reference to help you in this work. And if you have questions related to the Housing Opportunity Goal calculation tool, our colleague Kyle Soner is available to assist. So his email address is on the screen, but if you cannot see that, it's kyle.soner@state.co.us. And he's ready to take questions and provide technical assistance. We are planning to have an upcoming webinar opportunity related to the Transit Center calculation model. So for anyone who's available to join us live on April 2nd from 3 to 4:30, we really encourage you to do so. We will be not only providing the live webinar, but of course we will record it, much like this one, and we'll be making the recording and the slides available after that webinar has concluded. For more information or to make sure that you are invited to that opportunity, please reach out to Kelly Blinn, who's been working really hard on this work and has been with us really since the start of the law implementation process. She's got so much great information and is such a valuable resource for us. So definitely encourage those of you who'd like to attend to reach out to Kelly to make sure that you get an invite to that webinar. And with that, I just thank you all for your time, and I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Hannah.
Thank you, Eugene. I'm here to talk about the minimum parking requirement law. Next slide. So this law pertains to requiring a minimum parking requirement for multifamily in certain areas of town. So this is a very general timeline of the different resources that we've published and what's due upcoming. So as you can see, according to this timeline, we have published the applicable transit service area map. We also have published guidance, and we've published a parking best practice. So the next date that to keep in mind is June 30th. That's the compliance date. There's no mandatory reporting for this parking requirement law. However, there is if you're planning on using an exemption. So if you plan on using an exemption, keep in mind that a report is due December 31st of 2026. All right, so as far as assistance with this law, like I mentioned, we have published the applicable transit service area map. That's a GIS map where you can zoom into your community and see what areas of town a minimum parking requirement is no longer allowed. There are some good examples, or we've started to do some courtesy reviews, and I have seen some good examples on how to incorporate this into your city code. For example, the city of Aurora took the shape files from our parking minimum website and incorporated it into one of their city-owned mapping system, or into a map that they already maintain. They are planning on expanding some of those areas, but that kind of takes the onus, or not the onus, sorry, the ownership of the map in your city code and puts it back on the city versus being at the state. Some updates to the parking minimum webpage has also been published. We did update some of that guidance, and the form and manner for the exemption report is also posted. We are planning on developing a voluntary compliance report. Again, that's completely optional. It just helps us gather data. So if you have implemented the minimum parking law, we strongly encourage that you submit the voluntary compliance report, but again, it is not required. On that website, we also have published some code amendment examples. So if you're not super sure where to start, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, but you can also check out those examples. We are offering courtesy reviews of this code or of this particular law as well. So if you are amending your code and you're not super sure if a particular regulation would be compliant, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's a number of ways that you can do that. You can email me directly, or you can hit the submit a question button on DOLA's website. Like I mentioned, the parking management best practices report has been published. And again, a huge thank you to everybody who participated in the creation of this report, giving feedback. It was extremely valuable. This report will be particularly helpful if you're planning on submitting an exemption or using that exception within the law. But we also are planning a webinar for the end of April to highlight some Colorado case studies. Steps. Like I mentioned, we have that voluntary compliance report, completely optional, but we are still in development with that. That will get posted to the website once it's complete. We are developing a series of template slides that a city can use to present these laws to their planning commission or city council or neighborhood organization, whatever it may be. And so there will be a set that's applicable to this law as well. Moving on to ADUs. Here's a basic timeline of the ADU law. We have published that ADU guidance. It is currently posted on the website. We are in development with a ADU toolkit as well. That'll be a really in-depth look at all the different strategies that different cities within Colorado and outside of Colorado have implemented various ADU programs. The big date to keep in mind is June 30th as well. This is the mandatory compliance date. There is also a mandatory report for ADUs, and the form and manner will be posted on the website pretty soon here too. And the ADU grant program is slated to be available in Q4 of this year. So updates to the DOLA ADU webpage. So the form and manner, so that's the reporting instructions, will be posted. So if you're wanting to gather information ahead of time so that you can report early, definitely look for that document. There's also code amendment examples if, again, you're not super sure where to start. And we've also posted the ADU supportive strategies list. The ADU supportive strategies list will be helpful if you're planning on becoming an ADU supportive jurisdiction. In order to be eligible for the ADU grant program that's upcoming, you have to be certified as an ADU supportive jurisdiction, and that's where this list will be extremely helpful. This list does have details on the 9 acceptable strategies that were listed within the law, as well as pros, potential pitfalls, and some existing examples. Again, we are offering courtesy reviews of any code amendments that you might be working on. Happy to bounce some ideas, be a soundboard or anything like that. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, you can email me or Eugene directly, or you can hit that submit a question on our webpage. Great, next steps. So the ADU toolkit, that'll be very in-depth on how to implement various ADU programs in your community. It'll include some guidance, tools, and examples with the overall goal of boosting ADU production. The ADU fee reduction and encouragement grant, that's the grant that'll be, I believe, live in Q4 of this year. Just a point of quick clarification, we have gotten some communications directly from residents about the grant program, and we just want to make sure that that it's communicated that this is a reimbursement-based grant that is applicable to local governments, but is not available directly to residents. Like I mentioned earlier, we are developing a series of template slides for these laws, and ADUs will be one of them. Additionally, and lastly, we are working with the Department of Regulatory Agencies on putting together an HOA-focused webinar. both Dora and DOLA have been getting a bunch of questions from HOAs on whether their HOAs within a subject jurisdiction and how that might interact with the various laws that apply to an HOA. And so this webinar will be focused towards answering those questions. We don't have a specific date yet. However, we are shooting for late April as well. And I will turn it over to my colleague, Mark Williams.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to come to our webinar. Can we go to the next slide? So I'll be talking about some of the housing planning criteria in SB 24174. There's a lot in there in the bill, which you would know if you've looked at it. It just keeps going. So the first thing is we are still looking at the pre-existing housing needs assessments that we got by the end of last year. If you haven't heard from us, let me know. We're trying to get through all of those as quickly as possible. There are a lot though, but that's we're getting through them, and we should be getting back to you shortly if you haven't heard from us yet. I would also say that if you haven't started working on your RFP for a housing needs assessment and you haven't done one yet, this would be a good time to start thinking about it. We also encourage you to work with other local governments in your county or region. It's a good idea to pool resources. These things there's some cost associated with them. And so if you can do that, you'll save money. And the law also encourages governments to do regional level assessments because housing markets are not local, they're regional in nature, so you'll probably get a more accurate assessment of the housing market in your region. Next on the list is we're developing guidance for the new comprehensive plan requirements that are in SB 24174. Some of that is related to the statewide strategic growth report process. Much of that has to do with water supply elements. So if you haven't started working on that and need to, that's due by December 31st of 2026 as well, I believe. And Scott Williamson in DOLA is your best contact to discuss anything related to the water supply element. We also have several displacement risk documents that we're working on. Currently on DOLA's housing plans page, under the tools and something. Sorry, I can't remember what it says now. But there are several links to displacement risk guidance, including a spreadsheet that'll help you identify some criteria for figuring out what the displacement risk is in your area or your city or county, as well as some other guidance that was done at the end of last year, which is a little bit of a deeper dive than just the checklist. We're also going to be putting in the data dictionary that'll help you understand some of the what's in the spreadsheets. So if none of that makes sense, just let me know. It's a several step process. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for governments to finish this displacement risk portion, but there are 6 or 7 steps going through in that. So if you get to that point while you're working on your HNAs, just reach out to me and I'd be happy to walk you through that. And also, if anyone has done that, if they have any feedback on maybe a way to improve that, or if they think it's fine, just be interested to hear that as well. And then we're also still, we still have input opportunities on the affordability strategies. That's another requirement in SB 24174. And so just be watching for those as well. So next slide, please. Some of this has been mentioned previously, but this slide is a little bit updated. There are 168 different jurisdictions around the state that are subject to the HNA requirements. We've gotten submittals for about 91 so far. We're also doing what we're calling courtesy reviews. We've looked at a few places around the state where they've got a draft housing needs assessment and they want to know So what's missing, what's good, what else should we do? So we're also happy to look at those if you want to submit it. It's totally optional. We try to turn them around in a couple of weeks. So just let us know and I'll take a look at it. We have a lot of local HNAs as well as we're seeing a growing number of regional HNAs that they did pre-existing submittals, so by the end of last year, but also regional HNAs that are currently in the works. And just remember that if you're part of a regional HNA, each local government that's in that regional HNA needs to have a public hearing, or sorry, the legislation says a public meeting before the governing body for that government. So whether it's a board of county commissioners or town council or city council, you should make sure to include that step in your formation process. And then some of the regional HNAs that I mentioned, Region 9, which is the southwest part of the state, 5 counties, they're getting started to do one for all of the places in southwest Colorado. ECCOG, East Central Council of Governments, so Far Eastern Plains, is starting to work on one, and we're doing a courtesy review for them. And Weld County is also doing one with them. And that brings up another point. Weld County and DRCOG have some overlap. So if you're working on a regional HNA and you think you might have some overlap with a different jurisdiction, which is not going to be part of your HNA, just let us know. And I think through this process that we're working on with DRCOG and Weld, we'll have some steps on how to address that. I don't know if that's going to happen anywhere else, but if it does, let us know. And I think we'll be able to figure it out pretty easily. And just a reminder on the commonly missed items from the HNAs. Most of this was probably due to the pre-existing ones being submitted before. The law was passed about 10 months ago, but accessible and visitable units, that's something that can be tricky. An acceptable substitute data for accessible and visitable is persons with disabilities. And then for supportive units, if you have data on homelessness and the unhoused population in your community, you can also substitute that as well. I think we've talked about displacement risk quite a bit. And then water supply needs is an optional requirement in SB 24174. Some of the new ones have that. So if you don't do it now, you'll still need to do it by the end of next year. So that's up to you how you want to address that. But just be aware that those timelines run on the same track. And then also market limitations is something that's something that can only be measured at the local level. So your maybe zoning policies that make it harder to build lower density or higher density housing, or possibly infrastructure investment or topography, whatever you think would help you understand the affordable housing puzzle in your community would be a good thing to put in that section. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Mitch to talk about the grant programs.
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, this is a follow-up to last month when we were about ready to launch the new housing planning grant program. And that program has been open since March 10th and closes 2 weeks from today on April 11th. But it's not the only time you can access funds. So if you're not ready, you want to spend a little bit more time working with the TA team, Mark, Hannah, Eugene, to develop your plans, feel free to do so. We will be having a second round in late May, early June, and this time next month, we'll have a firm date for you on when the cycle will open and close. We do anticipate a third funding round in the fall, and future rounds will be determined based on funding availability. And I do want to touch on something that Mark had just mentioned with some of the existing housing need assessments that need some remediation. If you're one of those communities that does need a little bit more work on your needs assessment, you can come to this program on the screen and in the chat for funding to support that remediation. Even if it's not a full brand new needs assessment, we can help you fund that work to bring your document into compliance with 174. You can also fund housing action plans and strategic growth elements of comprehensive plans. So please reach out to Ashley Basham or myself. Her email's in the chat. If you want more information on the grant program or just what an application could look like, we've got quite a few resources on the website, and we're happy to meet with you at any time. So if you're ready to come in for round 1 in 2 weeks, that's great. If you're not, we'll help you get ready for round 2 or 3 in the next couple of months. So thanks a lot. I'll pass it off to Nathan to talk about neighborhood centers and strategic growth.
Thanks, Mitch. Hi, everybody. Nathan Lindquist. I'm a senior land use planner at CDOT and helping with the broader DOLA team with implementation of the laws. Just wanted to talk briefly about the neighborhood centers and strategic growth pieces of the legislation. This is mostly a high-level update that's similar to what you've probably seen before, just to give a high-level overview of what these pieces are about, and then with one kind of small timeline update, but not too much new on these pieces. The overall timeline and concept of what is a neighborhood center is that they are voluntary designated areas by local governments. So kind of looking at mixed use walkable neighborhoods, connected when transit when possible, but obviously, in a lot of the state, there's not great transit service. So it's just talking about downtowns, main streets, kind of mixed use corridors, traditional neighborhoods, and it'll have a lot of flexibility based on the language in the law. So the idea is DOLA sets the criteria upcoming by June here, 2025. Then local governments tell DOLA where they think these areas make sense. And maybe it's like you have a small area plan you're working on where you're like, this area, we really are focusing our investments on here and want to create kind of a more focus with state agencies around investing in infrastructure or housing in an area. And then the legislation directs by December 2026 state agencies to update their grant award criteria. So next slide. Overall, we've just done some focus groups. We talked about this last month. So there's the list of focus groups we've done. And a lot of how we're thinking about this is like in the concept of the transect, there's a lot of different types of places in the state, and neighborhood centers will look different in all of these kind of places. So it'll have a lot of flexibility. Next slide. The one update we added to this slide of just the timelines is that with neighborhood centers, we are working that in the strategic growth report. So they're kind of both like looking in the big picture, how can we see the benefits of growing in a smart and sustainable way? And a big part of that is growing in neighborhood centers and trying to have future housing and commercial be walkable and connected. So all that's kind of in the same boat and how we're trying to just streamline things given the huge amount of things going on with all the laws. So you can see the red arrow of where we are, and we're really working with a consultant team to organize information and aiming for initial info that'd be available for stakeholder review by May on both the neighborhood centers and strategic growth report piece. And the other piece ongoing is the Natural Land and Agricultural Opportunities Report. That's really kind of trying to pull together a lot of information from various other reports around resiliency and other things that the state's done to try and put it in a more usable format that when local governments may be working on comprehensive plans, whatever they have, they kind of have something they could look at for guidance or opportunities. But all of these things that, just to reference, don't have any mandatory components with them. It's all kind of pulling together best practices, case studies around the state of where things are working or where we can improve things, and trying to put it into a handy package for folks to reference. So that is the update on those pieces. I'll turn it back over to whoever is doing this.
I think Eugene and I can tag team this one. There's a slide after this with some key links that we referenced today, but a couple of things on the grant side of things and next steps. First, immediate next steps, throw a question in the chat or Q&A if you have anything that you want us to talk about today, but also feel free to email us afterward. I wanted to make it known that The referenced ADU grant program are going to be starting to do some engagement. We want your feedback on what a program could look like, what would be helpful. So I think in the next couple of months, we'll be reaching out, trying to do some engagement with you all, stakeholders, to develop that program, along with the Transit-Oriented Communities Infrastructure Grant Program as well. Both of those grant programs will launch later in the year, and we want to create those in being mindful of what will be helpful and what you're looking for out of a grant program that matches what is in the law. So thanks for that. And Eugene, I'll pass it to you if there's anything you want to remind folks about on the next steps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mitch, and to all the presenters today. I wanted just to make sure that we shared our contact information with everyone. So for those of you who are viewing this online, you can see all the folks that have spoken and those who have spoken in past webinars. We've got our contact information here, and then just encourage you all to reach out to us. Another update that's in the formulation stages, so a little bit too early to announce, but I did want to let you all know that we are working very closely with the State Demographer's Office. And one of the ways that we are engaging and collaborating with them is around the accessibility of information and data, demographic data particularly. They are looking for opportunities to package the information that they sort of own and are responsible for that will be helpful in many of these laws and the implementation of the laws and the reports and things that local governments will be looking to do and work on. So we're hoping that maybe by our next meeting, we can share a little bit more about what those resources might consist of. But some of the things that we are aware of is some of that more difficult and challenging data to access through sort of traditional resources. We are looking for opportunities to secure that information, for example, around our unhoused populations, how we might think about sort of identifying accessible and visitable units, just as two examples. We also have had conversations in our early preliminary engagement with different communities around how to best calibrate. Is it at the local level, meaning very local? Can we do certain analyses at the county level? So looking at the geographies and scales. And so we're looking at ways that we could maybe potentially hone in and calibrate those levels. So we're doing all of this work in partnership with the State Demographer's Office. And we are hoping that we will be able to provide some additional resources to all of you as a result of that partnership. So we've got some other things in the works. We are looking at, and I believe Hannah mentioned this related to the ADU and parking laws, but we are looking at potentially putting together some very, sort of streamlined informational templates that many of you could then use in your work in engaging with your communities or your elected officials. And so more to come on that, but we do see that that could be a helpful way of really kind of getting at the key details of the laws and provide those resources to you. We're thinking about how we can just sort of make them very basic so that you can incorporate that information or those slides into a larger slide deck with your own communities, look and feel and branding, things like that. So more to come on that as we get those things developed. But I wanted to just say thank you again. I'm going to pause the recording and then see if we have any questions that we can answer for you. And just really thank everyone for being with us today.